Discovery Weekly.
Welcome to Discovery Weekly, a bonus show from the podcast Discovery Show, where we talk about everything else we've discovered throughout the week. I'm Zach.
I'm Kirk.
And I'm Matt.
And I discovered this week that there is something called the Packaged Ice Quality Control Standards, also known as PEAQs. And the reason why they have this, and it's not mandatory. This is something that they have self-regulated. There is zero government regulation on packaged ice. And so they basically started their own organization, and you get like a logo on there saying that. And basically there's requirements, pretty stringent requirements for how you are producing your bagged ice. Otherwise, you cannot be in this program. And the reason why they did this is the horrifying part. Because when you start looking into what can be in ice right now, it's unpleasant. There's a lot of people who have the horror stories of they don't ever get ice at fast food places because they never clean their ice machines. And those people are onto something because throughout history, and I mean, it's not a ton of people. There's only been a couple there, but there is one in 92. Tainted ice spurs a cholera epidemic and killed leaving 8,000 ill and 7 dead in Peru. But 8,000 people got cholera because of ice.
Oh.
And there's throughout time, there's been deaths caused just by too much bacterial load in ice, which is something you never even think about. Although I am kind of ruining that for you right now because now you're going to think about it.
Now you know.
Yeah. But BBC actually did a report on this, and this was 2017. And they found fecal bacteria in ice at Costa, Starbucks, and Cafe Nero. And so basically there's no good level. You don't want any in there. You want the level to be zero. And they all had very high bacterial loads of fecal bacteria.
Someone
And
dropped a load in the stinking ice machine.
I think
what the heck?
Hopefully not.
Gross.
Hopefully not that.
Why is there poo-poo in the ice?
But yeah, there is some companies, because apparently when Starbucks saw this or like found out that they had been like popped for this, I'm sure somebody got fired, because there are chains and there are people who independently do this, but in general, it's not checked very often. And so I just wanted to kind of ruin ice for everybody and make it so you think about this next time you have a nice big gulp or a Polar Pop, whatever's regional for you.
I do very much feel sketched out when I go to like those mom and pop gas stations where it's like you can tell they haven't swept the floors in like 40 years. And you're like, I don't think I should get a fountain drink here.
Well, what's crazy about fountain drinks too is, having worked at a bar for a little bit, those lines that the thing goes through, they're never cleaned. None of that stuff is cleaned because it doesn't have to be. It's wild. Like the Coke syrup just goes through that line, and then they change the Coke syrup, and it's like, well, that's good. It flushes out, right? It's like,
somebody's into your drink.
Yeah, somebody's drinking it, and then it's clean.
Crazy. It's gross.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
You're welcome, everybody.
Well, I have 2 scary stories that I'm going to tell you guys. I read a bunch of them, and this is actually from travelchannel.com, but
nice.
It's travelchannel.com talking about the 11 greatest scary ghost stories from Reddit. So they were kind of reaching for some content on the travelchannel.com, but some of these were pretty good. And
to be fair, though, we're basically doing that too.
But we are not supposed to be held to the travelchannel.com standard.
Thank God for that.
We're not making Travel Channel money.
So here's the first story I'm going to say. It's called The Unrest Stop. Is that a rest stop? Get it?
I do get it.
This one is weird. It's just weird. And again, supposedly these are true. None of these are probably true, but it's still fun. It's spooky time. Suspend your disbelief. Here we go. I was driving across country with my mom and sister when I was 16 and my sister was 20. Interesting detail. I was late, but we were It was late, but we were all rested, still, and alert. We were driving along the interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break. So we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small gray car parked at a pump in front of us with 2 young men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything just felt wrong. We'd been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night and had never been afraid until then. My mom and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say that they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work, and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us, and the 2 men had not moved at all, not an inch. They weren't talking, they weren't on phones, they were just standing there, still as stones. My sister and mom came running back out to the car, and when they got in, the 2 men slowly turned to look at us while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies. And I swear to God, that's not what they said, but I swear to God, we all saw the same thing. They had dark eyes, pitch black, and empty, like truly empty. Not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about the experience, and this is the part that's really creepy to me, we couldn't find the place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper map that we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of road and only got confused looks. We've traveled on that interstate since, and there is no rest stop. I like that story. I like it because the last part about them not actually being able to find that same rest stop again. That's creepy. Which one is this one? Oh yeah, I like this one. This one was creepy too. It's entitled, "It Was Good to See an Old Friend." When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles through a very rural and almost abandoned part of the county. About 3 miles outside of town, I see someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out that it was one of the guys that I had attended school with. Jim gets in the car and we start talking. I had not seen him in over 20 years, but he still looked the same, maybe a little bit older. We get to town and I ask him if he wants to come to the VFW and have a drink. He says, "No, just take me home." Jim's parents had lived only a few blocks from my grandmother's house, and I turned in that direction, but he said to take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there, and I just figured that's where he lived. When we reached the end of the turn off, he said, "Just drop me off here. It was good to see you again." And he walks off into the night. I go to the VFW, met some of my old classmates, and we start to talk. As we're talking about who's coming to the reunion, I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim up 3 miles east of town and had dropped him off. Everyone gets really quiet. Even the guy singing karaoke stops and lays down the mic. My cousin goes as white as a t-shirt. "Barb, Jim died on that curve 8 years ago. Rolled his car. We were all at his funeral," I was told. I started to feel really dizzy, and I went out to the car to take some deep breaths. There, on the seat, was the local newspaper printed 8 years previous containing Jim's obituary. I still have that paper in my possession. I like that one too. They're creepy stories. I like creepy stories.
Creepy stories.
Creepy stories.
You're aware of creepypasta, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That just brought me straight back to like some of those awesome thread stories that are just super fun to read.
Yeah, that we actually covered a podcast called Mr. Creepypasta. That's just all that.
Oh, that's
he
dope.
just reads. Some of them are really disturbing. Is the problem? You have to sift through some really messed up stuff to find ones like that are not as messed up. They're just kind of fun.
There's like the one with the clown. I'm sorry, but I covered up that clown statue you have in the attic. And it's like, we don't have a clown statue in the attic.
Yep. That's a classic.
That one. There's that one. There's the Candle Cove one where it's like people are remembering a television show online. And at the end, it's like, I told my grandma about it. She was like, "I thought that was so weird. You'd watch Static every night." and you'd go on about a pirate show called Candle Cove. What a fun imagination you had. And they're like, whoa.
I don't know if I've ever read that one. Yeah, no,
that was a good one. Yeah, you should definitely check out Candle Cove. It's not my discovery. But both of my discoveries this week are about cryptids, which are creatures that are the study of them is called cryptozoology. You might know them as like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, all that stuff. But my first discovery is a Indiana University article that is about 7 species that used to be cryptids, which I find super interesting.
Okay.
No, I think that's so interesting because people do act really weird about things that haven't been discovered, or like, I guess, substantiated.
Yeah.
And I mean, what with like the gorillas, like the silverback gorilla was like, what? Almost in our lifetime, not quite, but it was like not even that long ago. And it was literally, they thought it was made up by villagers in wherever the freak they are.
In gorilla
Somewhere
land.
Not here. I don't want to say something that's completely wrong.
They're in the mist.
They're in the mist.
Misty mountains.
Exactly.
Of Mordor.
I know, it's fascinating. It's cool too, because going through this list, I'm like, oh yeah, I could definitely see how that would someone think that wouldn't exist.
Well, like the platypus.
Like, the platypus is one of them. Yep.
Yeah.
The platypus is one of them.
Because everyone thought that was a freaking hoax.
Exactly.
I'm still not convinced. I've never held one. So
I've never held one.
So they discovered the platypus in 1798, which is crazy. That's not that long ago. The Komodo Dragon. That's a good one, right?
Yeah, it is.
They didn't know that one existed until 1910.
Holy cow.
Right?
That's crazy.
And you guys have seen this one before. I think the okapi, which is essentially that like deer with the weird
butt.
stripes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I call it.
It was called the African unicorn. So of course everyone's like, that's not real. But they discovered it in 1901. Or I should say didn't discover it, but someone wrote it down.
Yeah, I'm sure it had been discovered by someone who was made fun of, and there's no such thing as unicorns, idiot.
And I got to read the blurb for the gorilla because it's so interesting. They say the article's like, bet you didn't expect to see that on the list. But most European explorers thought that gorillas were monster-like. And the first attributed sighting of a gorilla by a non-African was made in the 5th century BC by Greek explorer Hanno. Most scientists today believe Hanno was describing either chimpanzees or baboons from his account. However, his interpreters called the creatures what he saw, gorillae. Another explorer, Andrew Battle, recounted seeing human-like monsters visit his campfire every morning after he left for the day. Of course, he had to mention they didn't know how to put more wood on the fire to keep it going. Yet gorillas remained cryptids until 1847, when Thomas Savage found gorilla bones in Liberia. He, alongside Jeffries Wyman, wrote a formal description of the new species, calling it gorilla.
Gorilla.
It's a scientific name,
necessary.
I guess it wasn't quite in our time.
No, but that's crazy, right?
No, that is crazy.
Good Lord. And the giant squid was another one. That was very recent
That makes total sense, especially because aren't they like 20 feet long?
Oh, yeah. They're 24. The one that was caught live was a 24-foot female giant squid, which is insane. But they kept washing up on shore and everybody thought that they were hoaxes, which is so funny.
I remember watching Discovery Channel shows on giant squid when I was a kid.
Too.
Like, it was like, that's where it was like a craze. Like, you know how there's things go in waves where there's like a bunch of different stuff about the same thing. I swear there was like a craze when we were kids about giant squids. And I thought it was so creepy and cool. I loved it. The
first images of a giant squid were taken in 2004. So that would be like right smack dab.
Wow. When they started making all those shows on Animal Planet.
Yeah. And in 2006, that's when they caught the live one. There's a species called a bandagazoo. It looks like a koala. It is one of the ancestral spirits of the Moni people in Western Papua New Guinea. Its ties to Western Papua New Guinea mythology made the bandagazoo a cryptid for decades. I doubt the name helped either.
I love that name.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not real. Yeah, but he took in the 1980s, an Australian, I don't know why I said it like an Australian scientist took the first picture of a bandagazoo. They're pretty cute. I like them. And this is the last one. And this was pretty wild because they're so well known. Kangaroos. Kangaroos were once cryptids.
It makes
That's
sense.
kind of crazy to me because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
out there.
but if you were to describe them, I think all of this is pre-internet and pre-being able to travel easily. Because if you were to describe, they jump around on their feet and they have a pouch where they hold their babies and they'll punch you and they'll try and cut you open with their tail or with their toes while they're sitting on their tail. You're like, okay, what? Get out of here.
That's so fun. Yeah, it's funny because he did. The guy who first found them described it as a monstrous beast with the head of a fox, the hands of a man, the tail of a monkey, and a bag that is used to carry its young. You just listed like every single thing that he did, which is pretty wild.
Because they're weird animals.
Yeah. Pretty wild. It's just, I imagine that this is what helps keep cryptozoologists going. They're like, we got to find the Jersey Devil and the Bigfoot because we found kangaroos, you know?
Yeah, no. And Bigfoot, I think they're all hyped about because they're like, it's just a bigger ape. It's bigger than a gorilla, but we know gorillas are real.
I will say though, I've seen so many Bigfoot shows that I've like listened to crazy people talk about, oh yeah, there's a family of Bigfoot. They come on over every Sunday and we have dinner. I'm like, okay, that's not real.
My opinion on the Bigfoot stuff is if Bigfoot exists, then I think that it's going to be like the Yeti and like the Himalayas where it's like super difficult to get to. And very few people have even gone over there unless they're like ridiculous explorers. There's like so many stories of that kind of stuff there from only the natives.
Right.
But that's because that's the only people that are there all the time.
Yeah.
Then you get like an American that goes for like 4 days to climb up a mountain and come back home. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's the same thing with all of these things. It's like nobody believed the Komodo dragons were real because they lived in Indonesia. And it's like,
all the Indonesians knew they were real.
Yeah, exactly.
But no one else believed them. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of Americans that believe Bigfoots are real.
I mean, me and Zach and Matt, we all live in Florida. We know that the swamp ape is real. I mean,
know that.
The skunk ape. Skunk ape's real. We've seen it.
It's stanky out there.
You know, there's no non-Floridians that have verified it.
I feel like that is kind of the same premise, though. A skunk ape could very easily blend in with the Floridians. You would never know he was there.
Everybody's like, oh, that's just a beach bum.
That's just Ted.
That's Ted, the guy who surfs all the time.
Stinks real bad.
Yeah.
So I discovered.
Come on, Zach. Speaking of stinking.
I mean, it would work. Speaking of skunk apes and their stinkiness, I found that there is new toilets coming because
new toilets dropping. Oh, snap.
So there are a couple different scientists this article talks about, but the premise here is the toilet is basically unchanged for about 150 years. The general design is basically the same. Yeah, everybody's going crazy, getting bidets, but that's basically you just put a super soaker on there. That doesn't count as actual innovation.
That's the bidet craze. That's what they call it. The craze.
Just look it up on Pinterest. It's on there. But basically, there are several different companies right now who are all working on making the smart toilet. And the premise behind the smart toilet is you can learn a ton about your general health from a stool sample. And so if your toilet were to be taking stool samples every time you went to the bathroom, you would have not only like a baseline of kind of general health, general healthiness, but you would also know early when to go to the doctor. And hold on, let me find this section because there's a lot of interesting kind of points on this. And it is funny because both of the people and both of the companies that are working on this are very passionate about this project. They're not at all like holding back. They're like, this is going to be amazing. Just wait for it. But basically, this one, she has her name is Sonia Grego, and she has a company, or she's the co-founder of a company called Coprata, and it uses sensors and artificial intelligence to analyze waste. And she's hoping that there is an early model to start to test this thing soon. And basically, there are a lot of things that this would help with. So you can get a healthy baseline. Having technology that tracks what is normal for an individual could provide an early warning that a checkup is needed. And these are quotes. For people with specific conditions such as inflammatory bowel disease, the device could provide helpful monitoring for doctors. And she then continues, it's very difficult to know when to escalate or de-escalate treatment. Stool-based biomarkers can provide this information. And so in general, you can, and the last, she does have another note in here that you can figure out what kind of food triggered an uncomfortable gastric episode. So you could literally, like, your toilet would be like, it was the chili, man. Don't do that. Which is a funny premise that could be the future.
This is rife with funny premises. I'm just picturing a HAL 2000. It just is. You know, flush toilet, please. He's like, I can't do that, Dave.
I'm analyzing.
Yes, I won't do this anymore. I'm very unpleased with doing this. The life of a toilet.
Oh, so he's going to become self-aware and not want to handle poop all day?
This is a very shitty job, Dave.
So there is another one that is actually, he's a professor. His name is Joshua Kuhn, and he is a professor of chemistry and biochemistry at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he is making a toilet that focuses on urine. And so apparently this is easier. And I mean, in the future, you're probably going to get both of these things. I don't know. But basically, it's the same type of premise where you're going to be able to check on all this and see. And so there's a lot of interesting things you can do with this. You can see when medicines come in and out of your system so they can better track like when like the window of you being treated by medicines are. They can see essentially how well you slept. Apparently there's molecules in your urine that relate to that, how much fat you had in your diet, your calorie intake. And then you can also see things like there are some molecules that go into your urine when you work out. So now your pee consuming toilet can judge you for not working out like all your friends. And so
I can't get over the idea of having two toilets, going pee in one and then being like, okay, everything checks out. And like, let's check the rest of my health.
Good job, buddy. See you later.
So I think that is going to be the barrier of entry for this to go into the market is everyone is a 12-year-old when it comes to poop and pee. We just all we're all still children, and we think it's hilarious and a little gross.
Man, I would love to be told by a computer about either of those bodily functions. I think that'd be the funniest thing in the world.
No, and I mean, there's a lot of like extra things here. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but like they will talk, like they're going to use that data to try and better understand essentially like how gut health is relating to general health and how your diet is relating to your gut health. And there's a lot of things that they can develop with the data here. And so it's an interesting premise. I don't know. Would you guys get a smart toilet? I think I would get one just for the comedic value.
Yeah.
I would get one for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there is nothing more. This is probably TMI, but my landlord, there was a box and I was like, hey, you have a package. And I put it out back or whatever. And she texts me, she goes, oh, that's my poop box or whatever. And I was like, what? It's like a diagnostic test box. And you get this shit.
Those.
It's like, oh my God.
I thought you meant it was just the box she poops in.
You have to like send in the mail. Yeah, that is weird that she told you.
I was a little. I just said, like, okay.
Yeah, because you can basically get stool samples sent off so you don't have to get a colonoscopy or something like that. Like
and it's
nowadays.
Like super, I don't know, the idea of doing that and then sending it into a box, and it's like,
see, and now you don't have to do it. You can just poop in your toilet and they'll do it for you.
And instantly. Well, presumably. I don't know.
No, it's got a 4-hour load time.
That is a bad choice of words.
Load time. All right. Going along with the spooky theme.
That was pretty spooky.
It was very spooky. I have an Atlas Obscura article about somewhere, but it's a little bit spooky. And it is a place in Costa Rica called the Mountains of Death. And there's some spirits that are the guardians of the Mountains of Death. So it's just like a lot of stuff at once. And it is very fascinating. It's like, I don't know, it's interesting folklore I want to learn more about. I've never heard about it till now. Here's the story. It was around midnight when biologist Paula Munoz woke to the sounds of children laughing as pots and pans clattered to the kitchen floor. She listened from her room to an adult voice scolding the mischief makers. It was followed by a whack of a broom and the barking of Alaska, the resident dog of the field station where she was staying, high in the Talamanca Mountains of Costa Rica. In the morning, she asked the station's caretaker about the midnight ruckus. He said, "It was those stupid Nimbulos. They think it's funny," she recalls. And that's the name of these guardian spirits. She said more than a decade after the incident, she regrets staying in her room. She said, "I had the opportunity to see them," she says. "I was just too afraid." Munoz's apparent near encounter with the Nimbulos is not unusual in this corner of the Talamancas. These childlike spirits are said to live in the forest around Cerro de la Muerte, the Mountain of Death. Rooted in indigenous folklore, stories of the Nimbulos have evolved in the telling. Spanish incursions in the 16th century tinged them with the element of Catholicism. More recently, concerns about climate change and deforestation have infused the tales with eco-activism. As the landscape change, the stories change with them, reflecting the influencing the experiences of local people. Now, stories told of the Nimbulos echo the plight of the region's endangered and threatened species, such as the resplendent quizgall and bared tappers. They must be actively protected or face extinction. So now, like this that's what's interesting about folklore is like the folklore of these spirits that guard the mountains. It used to be just, they were just mischievous little kid spirits that would mess with stuff. Now they're like protecting the mountains from, deforestation and stuff like that. It's just really fascinating to hear and read how the story's changed. There's another story about the guy that owns a biological station out there that does like research. Says the first time he saw them, they appeared as children hiding behind a fallen tree. There one moment and gone the next. At first, I didn't know what they were, he says, but I had heard the word Nimbulos from a Bolivian friend, so I started calling them Nimbulos. Vilveras, which is the guy's name, spent a few years researching the term, but couldn't find any mention in Costa Rica, Bolivia, or beyond. He has heard of other strange sightings around Cerro de la Muerte, but the Nimbulos remain special to him. They are found only in the high elevation territories, he says, where the forest is magical and unique. And it's just, that's also fascinating because when you've got a folklore about something, but it's in the middle of like nowhere, it almost tends to give it more credence than it's like, okay, Jersey Devil, it's in the middle of New Jersey. I mean, is there really a Jersey Devil? I don't know, but that's probably not likely. But what about these things that are in the middle of these backwoods forests in the middle of the rainforest of Costa Rica? It's fascinating.
God, the image of a bunch of kids behind a fallen tree creeps me out so bad.
It sounds creepy. Sounds very creepy.
Wow. Well, speaking of creepy, that was too easy. Like I said, my second discovery is a about a specific cryptid. This one, I believe, went a little viral in probably pretty recently, like right before the pandemic, I think. It's called the Fresno Nightcrawler. And I'm just going to read this. I'll also let you guys know that cryptids. There's a wiki, a cryptid wiki that's pretty awesome, and it really goes in depth about all of these. It even tells you about ones that have been debunked, ones that have, no one knows anything about them. It's a pretty extensive thing. There are videos and stuff attached to each wiki, so it's pretty fun. But I'm just going to go through this, what they know about the Fresno Nightcrawler. It is also known as the Fresno Alien. It's a cryptid that has made 2 appearances so far, one in Fresno and the other in Yosemite National Park, both in California. In both sightings, it's only seen in video footage. However, a man in Poland has also claimed to have seen the creature. It is said.
So wait, are you saying that they haven't seen it with their own eyes? They didn't see it till later in the video footage, is what you're saying?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's that.
Photos.
Yeah, or if it's just only been captured via video footage.
Maybe that's what they mean. Because that's what I was wondering. If they didn't even see anything, and they go back and they're watching their videos, like, what the heck is that?
That'd be so creepy.
That's freaky.
It is said to resemble another cryptid called the Carmel area creature, which I assume was a similar thing seen in the Carmel area. I said Carmel, but it's Carmel. So this is a sighting of the Carmel area creature, which they think is the same thing. But the witness was a 60-year-old former Marine yet to be named. Sorry. He hasn't given his name. Excuse me.
His mom never named him.
Yeah, they never named him.
They're still waiting.
Yeah. He said that we recently bought a place in the Fort Hill area. We noticed after 30 days of living here, we suddenly have a perfect circle that stays fresh green no matter what weather in our front yard. On Friday night, the 12th, when we were driving home after turning on Carmel Road, which leads to our road, we went around the curve by the Carmel Church and then up a small incline, approximately 10 feet over the incline in front of our truck. The alien ran across the road and into the woods. So that was the first sighting. And it's described as a thin, armless, pale humanoid creature seen in Ohio. Now, this is the Nightcrawlers. This one, I have seen this video, and it is very weird. But it's security footage of like a backyard kind of carport thing. And it's grainy, and you don't know what you're looking at. But the creature was spotted in Yosemite, where footage was taken again from what appears to be a security camera. This time there are 2 creatures, one being very small, less than 5 meters, less than half a meter. And the feet of the creatures can clearly be seen, as well as what appears to be sort of webbing connecting their knees to the upper body on the least. Cryptid has also been videotaped in Poland, this time from what appears to be a handheld camera, judging from the shakiness of the footage.
That thing looks creepy.
It's very creepy. The video
it looks
itself,
like a ghost, but with long legs.
Yeah, this Yosemite video is real weird looking.
Everybody was describing it as Dobby from Harry Potter running around. But even then, it's like not quite that.
It just looks like legs without an upper body. It looks like just disembodied legs.
So here are some of the explanations that they have come up with so far. It could be an alien or an extraterrestrial being, the most obvious, of course. It could be a new species, right? Possibly a primate with short arms. A misidentified deer standing upright.
I don't think it's the deer.
I don't think
either.
That's it.
It moves too uniquely. They have said another explanation is pants and or a puppet on a wire, which
I could see pants on a wire.
Right. A bird walking like a crane, which is also kind of feasible. or a person wearing big pants and walking on stilts. Which, I don't know, you can force perspective or something, but it doesn't look that big. But they're still not sure. They are saying here that some of these sightings are hoaxes. They are actually a pair of white pants being puppeteered, therefore a hoax. But they're not sure which ones are and which ones aren't. I'm sorry. They're not sure of a few of them if they are. And it's pretty obvious in the videos that they have on this wiki which ones are like, yeah, those are pants. But it's I heard about this one recently and I was like, the Fresno Nightcrawler. I had no idea it had this name, but I have seen it before. And it's a fun website. Definitely check it out. It's cryptids.fandom.com. And it's fun time to go through.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these videos. I will say that.
Yeah,
the first one, the really grainy one, that one looks unsettling. The other ones kind of feel hoaxy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. The one that's like got the green background, that one looks like a puppet.
Well, and you know, it's so hard with the way that photography and video happens anymore. It's like you see what is it called? Extended reality stuff, and it's like, no, you can just create any 3D image and then doctor it into something by editing it after it's in there.
Yeah, if you hear anybody nowadays that says, well, if I see it in a video, then it will be real, then they don't actually believe that, because almost all of these things have video. That just doesn't mean it's real. It just means someone's good at editing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's much more hard, I feel like, to validate than it even used to be when, let's just say, just cameras. If you got a picture of the thing, you're golden. It's done. Nowadays, no one trusts a picture. No one trusts a video. And I get it, because I don't either, because it's very easy to doctor something and make it look like you want.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating, and it's still interesting to see videos of things like that. And that's not one I knew existed, or maybe it doesn't exist. We don't know.
Yeah, who knows? That's why I was like, oh, I got to check this thing out. Definitely, above all, cryptids are fun. That's what I love about them.
They are really fun. Well, yeah, I think that's all of our discoveries for this week.
We did it, guys.
We just covered.
But yeah, thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
May thine discoveries be great and bountiful.
I was really hoping for some heavy echo on the end of one of those.
Well, no.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening, friends.
Bye.
Bye.
From the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.